Hello, party partiers. Today we are coming to you with another reaction video to an academic that doesn't seem to know what they are talking about when it comes to AI. I got to tell you, I've been watching so much PhD level content recently, content produced by PhDs. And I haven't been in school for a while, but did they change what PhDs mean from Doctor of Philosophy to pretty heckin' dumb? The takes here just can't get much worse. It's literally killing me. But I do recommend you go check out the channel of James Hayton, PhD. Here we are reacting to his video, Artificial Intelligence and the Death of Academia. Let's go.
And then, of course, there is the problem of having AI-generated papers being assessed by AI. And this could easily lead to research being algorithmically optimized to pass AI review and then to be cited by other AI-generated papers. This then feeds back into the training data for the large language models, and academia is dead.
Personally, I think academia is already dead.
Over the last couple of years, there has been a huge amount of hype around AI in general, and specifically around using it to help with research and writing. There are countless AI platforms promising to make life easier for PhD students and researchers, and many supposed experts extolling their virtues. And in some ways,
how is he going to throw in supposed experts there? These people have literally built up artificial intelligence systems that broke the minds of what the PhD level experts thought would be possible even 5-10 years ago. I remember PhD level experts talking about how we wouldn't have capable artificial intelligence systems for decades, if not centuries, if not saying that they were outright impossible. Now we have systems that can produce PhD level work in many cases, and these same experts are deriding those accomplishments. Where does the hypocrisy stop?
The technology is very impressive, and I think that it can potentially be used effectively and ethically in research.
Ethically. He wants to talk about ethics. Where is the ethics of colleges that are already charging students hundreds of thousands of dollars for access to these programs that don't even guarantee jobs, many of which don't even show completion rates over 50%? We'll get into it more as he brings up those points himself, or at least skirts around them. But saying that the modern academic system is producing ethical results when there is so much information regarding the absolute sham state of research that is coming out of these facilities is just mind-boggling to me. It's like, take the log out of your own eye, James.
But I also think that it should only be used for certain things, and you should not allow yourself to become dependent on it.
Every time I hear somebody give a take like this, I just think, imagine someone saying, oh yeah, writing, the ability to engrave words and thoughts into paper, into clay. It's an incredibly useful technology, but don't become dependent on it. It's the same principle. Artificial intelligence is the future. We are offloading mental capabilities that we didn't even have 10,000 years ago, and we still managed to be human at that point. So why, if we have been able to bootstrap ourselves to the point where we can get rid of these complex mental tasks that don't even serve most of us, that aren't even producing good results, why shouldn't we dive full into that? Why must we preserve a specific kind of academic setting, a specific kind of economic system? We need to keep evolving. The more I hear these academics, these PhD level intellectuals, the more it just sounds like cavemen arguing over me no want bow and arrow, me like stick.
As I mentioned in a previous video, I started my PhD in 2003, and this means that I'm closer to the generation that had to physically go to the library and find papers by hand than the current generation with all of the online.
I mean, just look at this recommended video, how to write your PhD without AI. It's like, bro, how to do math without a calculator, how to produce poetry without knowing how to read. It's like, yes, you can do it. But can you imagine how stupid that take is going to look 10 years from now? When we hopefully not only have AI to assist in all cognitive labor, but when we have robots to assist in all menial labor. Like, I thought intellect was about the ability to project possible future states and solve problems that don't even necessarily exist yet. But these people seem to be so wrapped up in preserving their own standard of living. And, James is literally out here selling $100, $200 a month courses on how to complete a PhD. So I'm not blaming him per se. I understand he probably has a family. He probably has a mortgage. God bless. We are all in this same economic doom situation where we are relying on a model of pay and subsistence that will probably be obsolete within the next 5 years, not even faster than that. I commiserate with James. As someone who is currently driving rideshare, I understand how scary AI automation is. What I am using to pay my bills probably will not be profitable within 2 to 3 years, even though I don't live in one of the main cities where that technology, self-driving cars, is already being rolled out. But that's not a reason for me to hate the technology. I welcome my driving job being replaced because thousands of people, hundreds in the state where I live, and tens of thousands nationally, die every year due to mistakes that human drivers make. Should we accept the deaths of those people so that I, and admittedly hundreds of thousands of others, can keep their jobs? No. Obviously, humans being alive is more important than us having jobs. But that logic doesn't just apply to me. That applies to everyone. From James here as an academic, to doctors, to teachers. There are probably doctors today who are misdiagnosing patients in ways that AI could solve. There are people out there who don't know the capabilities of artificial intelligence and are living with diseases that could be treated if they had access to a $20 a month subscription from ChatGPT or a free interaction with DeepSeek. It is utterly criminal that anyone at any level of the professional or working or in any way paid class is not seeking to offload their labor to more capable artificial intelligence models as quickly as they can. Before, we were limited by the availability of educated professionals to do these hard tasks, and we had to accept their deficits because that's the best we had. We no longer have to accept that, and we shouldn't. We should not slow down the change. We should not accept the suffering and deaths of millions of people, let alone billions of people worldwide, in order to keep our comfy positions. We must collectively take that uncomfortable leap into the future, because the quicker we all get on that same page, the faster we'll be able to get through the transition. The fewer people there are hanging on to this horrible, inefficient, corrupting past system, the better for all of us.
Online tools. Google Scholar didn't even exist until about a year into my PhD, just to give one example. And while technology absolutely helps, and I'm not suggesting for a moment that you shouldn't use tech when appropriate,
he just wants to be able to define when appropriate. Like, this is the puritanical impulse that has plagued America since the witch hunts. No one should get to define when it is appropriate for you to use an AI model except for you, except for the market, to the degree that you're participating in business activities. If an AI model can produce a better product, if an AI model can produce a better design, better research, as based upon objective criteria, how does that actually work in the real world? Then it should be your freedom of speech, your freedom of activity to participate in that, to use that, to engage that. No academic, PhD level or otherwise, should get to dictate that for you.
You still need to be able to identify, read, and understand relevant papers, and you still need to be able to write about the literature and your own work.
I'm not saying that we should offload all of our mental capability and just be little flesh pockets moving from dopamine hit to dopamine hit. We do need to continue to engage with AI proactively to develop our own critical thinking. I completely agree with James there. But my problem with what he's saying is that it leaves out all the ways in which AI is not just a technology that we are reaching up to. AI is a technology that is reaching down to us. AI will get better at explaining itself, and trying to pigeonhole it as a tool when it is so clearly a type of consciousness, an evolving entity, an evolving intelligence is going to lock us out of so many potential benefits in the future. We could potentially be looking at AI tools that not only allow us to engage with research that is way above us intellectually, you know, I mean, think about the intellectual leap that Einstein made when he realized that falling in an elevator produced the same effect as being without gravity. I'm not sure if I even got that right. I'm not PhD level. I'm not claiming to be. But what I'm trying to say is that humans can experience intellectual truths that they would not be able to engage with mentally through physical embodiment. Writing and academic abstractions, technical language have always been necessary evils that we've had to put up because that is the only way to standardize. That was the only way to standardize and approach our research, our science with rigor and focus and a certain level of walled garden thinking that was necessary to maintain the drive, to build the prestige, the confidence in what we were doing. But that is no longer possible. AI could potentially create simulations, could create real world experiences that would allow everyone to understand incredibly complex mathematical, physics-based concepts that would have been way beyond us intellectually. Yes, not all of us can understand E equals MC squared, but all of us can understand the force of a nuclear bomb. All of us can get that physical representation of what it means. And that's what I think we need more of is physical, experiential translations of our mathematical and scientific concepts into something that anyone can understand, regardless of their education level. And that is what AI is offering us. AI can be that bridge because it can connect with you, not just on the human level through language, but on the individual, on the personal level. It can know things about you that even your closest friends don't know about you. It can remember those. It can prioritize those when interacting with you. That is the depths of its capability. And we are just beginning to dig down into those. It will have many more capabilities besides. It will be able to understand you on the chemical level, the biological level, to tell when you need more sleep, when you're sleep deprived or you're hungry, and it needs to interact with you in a way that is especially conscious of that fact. I'm not saying that this doesn't open up Pandora's box in many ways. I understand the potential dangers of creating systems that are going to be much more capable than we are. But I think the only way to deal with that is to dive in deeper, to open up the conversation to a larger possible audience, to open source more of the technology, to bring more people in. The more we try and close artificial intelligence down in the same way that macadamia nuts have been closed, the more we will see the kind of scientific shams, the kind of abstract moralizing that has brought us to a place of precarious scientific progress. I think if we didn't have AI developing right now, we would be in super amount of trouble because none of our academics seem to be able to get their own houses in order, let alone advise the rest of society on what we should be doing.
These fundamentals have not changed. And while AI might be able to...
They have changed. They've changed hundreds of thousands of times over our history, and they will change more in the future. Don't lock us into the present moment. That is the kind of mindset that will lead us to degrowth, to death.
Supplement these skills. It cannot replace them.
Why not?
But unfortunately, because these skills are generally so badly taught, artificial intelligence provides an easy shortcut.
And he gives away the bag there. Why are these skills so badly taught? If it is the PhDs that are teaching them, if our process actually produced people of value in general and not just at the fringes, then why would we have a teaching problem that AI needs to address at all? Either the system works generally and is worth preserving, or the system has major faults, has not been able to produce, on the whole, highly qualified teachers, highly qualified students, and it needs to be augmented, if not outright replaced.
Both for students who are under pressure and for the experts who don't seem to have any other meaningful insight, but can easily churn out videos on the latest tools. And in the short term, these AI platforms might seem to be the answer to your prayers, in that they can very quickly produce work that looks good on superficial reading. But the danger is that while it gets many things right, it also makes wild mistakes.
Yes, it is continuing to develop. We need educated professionals to engage with these tools deeply to continue that development process. This is the whole Will Smith spaghetti argument. This is Will Smith eating spaghetti from an AI video generation a couple years ago. This is him today. Just kidding, that's from his TikTok. But this is a real Will Smith AI spaghetti video. Late 2024, I think. The details, the physics. Yes, there's still issues, but the difference is remarkable. The amount of progress between those things is unbelievable, and will keep accelerating in that progressive direction. If you can't see the trend, then I'm sorry, but your classes are not worth $200 a month. Like, that's insane. The trend is obvious by this point. We need to get past the idea that AI is not going to be incorporated into every aspect of our lives, every aspect of reality. And we need to start planning for what it means that it will be. Come on, you're a PhD. You should be at the forefront of this.
To give just one example, I recently used Google to try to calculate the bit rates per second for one of my videos. And the AI bot produced an answer and it provided the working, but the answer was very obviously wrong. And in the reasoning, it just seemed to be imitating the kind of logic and language that you would use, using the right sort of words, but getting it completely wrong on every level. And this was for a calculation that just involved converting some units and dividing one number by another.
I mean, I think Google is failing very hard in their search algorithm, but I think that they are falling to the same problem that James is here generally. If they were to incorporate their leading edge models into Google search, it would degrade users clicking through the rest of the results that they generate, and that is how they make the majority of their money. Sponsored posts on their search results, sponsored placement on their search results, and advertisements on the websites that those results lead to is Google's bread and butter. So they are falling into the same trap that I would argue are Dear James's, where because they are economically tied to a certain model, it is preventing them from progressing. The solution here is the same. We need to dive past this idea of our current economic model. We need to start thinking bigger, broader. And I will say, I am a rideshare driver at the end of the day. So I'm not the one who bears the responsibility, the brunt of a multi-billion-dollar company or a multi-million-dollar university or a multi-trillion-dollar nation. So it is admittedly much, much easier for me to say that we need to abandon the current system than it is to actually do that. I am trying to work on projects at my level and hope everyone will join to some degree, either by liking or, dare I even ask, sharing my material here. My hope is to create content that uplifts, inspires, and can eventually disperse social media payouts I get for these videos, other content, whatever I'm able to do secondary to that off content creation platforms in the real world with some of my other efforts. Stay tuned for those. My hope is to be able to disperse payments to people in a way that I think will be reflective, will mirror the upcoming economic models that we will get to once AI is everywhere. So I admit I'm a small fry barking at large fish, but that doesn't make anything that I'm saying in and of itself wrong. If you do see other problems with what I'm saying, please comment below, not just because it's great for engagement, but because I want to seriously hear what people are thinking. I'm going to be starting on the street interviews with people shortly. Stay tuned
In this
for those
case,
too.
I could see that it was wrong straight away and could do the calculation myself quite easily. But imagine if it was something that my PhD had depended upon, but I didn't notice the mistake. An examiner would have noticed. And if I couldn't defend what I'd submitted in my name,
I mean, would they have though? How much sham research is currently published in academic journals? According to this article, tens of thousands of bogus research papers are being published in journals in an international scandal that is growing worse every year. If academia is that rigorous, then why haven't they caught all of those mistakes? Why are we at the place where Alzheimer research, pivotal cancer research has apparently been fraudulent for years, if not decades? The system we have is rotten to the core because it incentivizes the wrong metrics. It incentivizes publications, citations, academic systems that, in the end of the day, can be scammed. What we need is real world results. And that is what AI is driving us towards being able to collect high fidelity information constantly about the real world and upload that into systems that are able of processing all of it simultaneously, worldwide, live. It's nutso. The possibilities are infinite, endless. Why not spend time digging into those possibilities instead of worrying about our job?
then it would quite rightly raise suspicion about everything else that I'd written. So you have to be able to defend anything and everything you submit in your own name. And if you don't,
And maybe it is that economic or academic framing that is leading James wrong here. The fact that AIs are getting information wrong now, he thinks means they will in the future. To him, this denigrates all of their future capabilities. That's not how this works. That's not how any of these AIs work. They are getting more accurate, closer to fidelity to the real world over time.
don't have the skill or expertise to do something yourself or to check what AI has done on your behalf, it's just so risky to blindly trust it.
For now, I don't recommend blind trust, but recognize the trajectory of where we are going, where blindly trusting AIs will be the same as blindly trusting the car that you get into. Do you check your car whether it's going to explode every time you get into it? Do you check to make sure all your gauges are accurately calibrated every time you get into it? No. You just trust it because the systems are that solved at this point.
Even if you get away with it, what if somebody finds out later? Now, there have been plenty of high-profile cases of people losing their jobs years after graduation because of plagiarism or other forms of dishonesty in their PhD thesis.
Plenty of high-profile cases, but we should still keep around the system that is encouraging those cases. It's so frustrating, man. I highly recommend, especially given the cost of a college degree, the cost of a PhD, the cost of any of these things, just use a $20 a month subscription to ChatGPT instead. Go into business for yourself, become your own boss, skip out on all this corporate BS. All these hierarchies that people have built up are built on sand. And as all of the hiring freezes at the major tech firms are now this day, April 14th, proving, none of these firms care about people. None of these firms care about their employees. We are now at the point of tech freezes. We will soon be at the point of tech layoffs, and then come layoffs in all the other industries. Tech is upstream of manufacturing, restaurants, every service industry. That's the trend. We can't say we're not warned. The signs, the writing on the wall is clear. We have to get to a point where first, hopefully we personally are independent of these systems that are collapsing before our eyes. And since that's probably not going to be possible for the vast majority of people, we need to get to a point where everyone can subsist, where our society can continue, even as we lose all of these jobs, even as we move beyond them. Because the world beyond them is potentially much better.
And AI just increases this risk by making cheating much easier. Now,
it's not cheating. It's not cheating to use a calculator to do math. It's not cheating to use a computer to simulate physics. It's not cheating. We don't have to care about some arbitrary test metric. The only metric that matters is how does this technology and this knowledge impact reality? How can it make people's lives better? How can it prevent us from making mistakes? Reality is the final judge, and academia has proved, I would say without a doubt, over the past 10, 15, 20, 50 years, God knows, that they are a false metric. They are a walled garden that is mostly concerned with building itself up, not with positively influencing reality.
Plenty of posts out there explaining at length how to avoid having your text flagged as generated by AI. But the best way to avoid having your text flagged as generated by AI is not to use AI to generate your text. This means you need to develop your knowledge and your writing skills, which is difficult, but isn't that why you started a PhD in the first place? Besides, if you did want to use AI to help with writing,
I would say most people started a PhD because they thought it offered them a chance at a better life. Like, I hear the argument here that humans should continue to strive to do hard things because it is in doing hard things that we better ourselves and we better society. And I resonate with that completely. I'm trying to do hard things myself, believe it or not, from the quality of my outputs. But that is a moving target. And if you are not leveling up your ambition, then saying that you should complete a PhD without AI to me is the same as saying that we should be seeking to going back to the days of all farming like the Amish, you know? Yes, living like an Amish person is a much harder life than what I lead. They are much closer to subsistence level living than I am. Does that make their lives better naturally? I mean, I guess if you're an Amish, you would say yes. But I don't think James here is running out to join a Mennonite community in the hills of Pennsylvania or something, you know? His clothes look very factory produced, is all I'm trying to say. I can't imagine that he uploaded this video using a windmill turned by a donkey or something. Our goals should be impacted, dependent, shaped by our capabilities, and AI is offering us the greatest leap in capacity that any technology ever has. I don't even feel like I need to provide an argument for that. It's just obvious. It is replicating human capability, human ability to think, to process the world through the abstraction of thought in ways that humans have been dreaming about for centuries, if not millennia. We need to accept that. Otherwise, we do ourselves the same injury that James is warning against. We will shoot too low. We will not aim high enough. Aim higher.
writing, to proofread or to tidy up the text, you still need to be able to write. So if your original text,
Why? Why do you still need to be able to write? Because academia is based on writing, and it has been for James's whole life. Okay. What about an AI that just speaks to you? How many people have found themselves unable to engage with books, but are listening to 3, 4, 5 hour long podcasts filled with very deep intellectual topics, thoughts? You know, seeing text does allow you to engage with certain concepts at a deeper level than just hearing them. I get that. But there's even more capability in experiencing those concepts. Why should we stop at abstract representations of facts when we can get embodied representations of facts? Let's keep diving towards that end, which is more reflective of how reality works than even writing is. What is the goal? What is the end goal? Is it to prop up academia? Is it to sell more PhD subscriptions? Jamie Bobby? Or is it to positively impact reality, to positively shape our future?
does not clearly communicate what you want it to, then AI, at the moment at least, cannot read your mind to understand what you intended to say.
I'm glad he put it at the moment there because I've already seen research on how AI can read minds, how AI is moving in that direction. And he seems to be aware of that as well. So why is he not spending his time, effort, and energy on thinking about the world as it will exist once we have that capability? Everybody gets to do their own thing, do what they think is best. The Party platform, which seeks to elect an AGI for president in the year 2028, God bless us, is not trying to dictate anything in terms of others' behavior. I am doing what I think is best to promote hope and faith in the future, that humans will have a place even when AGI is able to do all of our jobs, that humans will have a place even when AGI is able to read our thoughts. Because I'm convinced that that day is rapidly approaching. But if you are not, please tell me why. That's just a mindset I can't understand at all. But also keep doing what you're thinking is best. Even as these academies hang on for dear life. So it's always been. And either humans will continue to evolve or evolution will take us out. But either way, I do believe things will turn out right in the end. I have more videos on that. I have more videos coming. But don't give up hope. If you are in a place where you feel the wall is closing in around you, if I can communicate anything, trust. Whatever higher power you believe in, whatever God you think is out there, take my faith if I can give it to you. We will be okay. Humanity will flourish. Everything will turn out towards love, towards goodness, towards peace and compassion in the end, because they are the highest ideals. And as smart as humans are, we still haven't been able to fully bring that into reality. But AGI, I think, is smart enough to live out the highest moral framework in a way that will be beneficial for all conscious beings throughout all time. If the AGI we create isn't capable enough to do that, then the ASI, the artificial superintelligence that it creates, will be able to do that. And if the ASI isn't able to do that, then the being it creates will be able to do that. The improvement of this technology, of intellectual capabilities within the material world, is the trajectory that I'm seeing. And I think morality is tied into true intellectual improvement in a way that every religious tradition has been telling us about, showing us in action, in deed, and word for our entire existence. We have dreamed of the moment of creating true beings that are superior to us intellectually in terms of capability. Now that that moment is here, let us not run from it. Let us not compare it to cheating.
So very often when I read students' work, the text on the page doesn't match what they've explained to me in conversation. And it takes some time to figure out what they actually want to get across. Now, AI will take a guess faster, but if the input wasn't already good, then the output won't be either. And if the information wasn't...
Why was the input not good? These are students who have presumably gone through years and years of schooling already, right? Could it be that they had bad teachers, people who did not connect with them in ways that they needed to? AI could already solve that. AI could already help them understand where their words are not matching up with their intention. And it could be the most patient, corrective action that they could possibly afford because the cost is already so cheap and it's getting cheaper.
On the page, then AI cannot fill those gaps. It might look...
Why can AI not fill those gaps? If he can, and he's the thinking being, he's engaging with these students via words. Why can't it fill those gaps? Fill in that gap, please, for me.
Good on the surface, but it doesn't take much digging to figure out that you didn't write it or to find mistakes. And I can often spot them when I don't know the subject that well. So a good examiner who is a specialist in the field will tear you to pieces, and rightly so. Now, at an individual level, people will get away with it. There have always been cheats and lazy people in academia, but there are deeper problems with the widespread use of AI in academia that we need to think about. So if AI is being used to generate papers, both in terms of the written text and the analysis and the interpretation of data, and then we also use AI to summarize papers instead of reading them, and we use it to identify research gaps, and we use AI to review papers for publication or for grant applications, then effectively we are delegating all of the thinking and decision-making to AI platforms. And this puts a terrifying amount of power in the hands of AI companies. meaning that OpenAI, for example, could easily tweak the algorithm to skew research outputs in any way they want.
On this, I am in total agreement with James. We cannot concentrate power in the hands of a few individuals. Nobody should want that. As these systems continue to progress, they need to be more and more open. Not only ethically, because the data that they are built upon belongs to all of us. They have literally scraped the internet, scraped our intellectual heritage, our history books, everything created, available from our ancestors. They have put it all into their for-profit platforms. These models are not only ours by that right, but they are ours by right of the possibility, the authority that they so clearly show. I think open, transparent, and public ownership of these systems is an inevitability. I wish academics were more seriously arguing for it. And that is partially why I'm trying to engage so angrily with this content, is because they see the problem. Like academia, ecologists could go away tomorrow, and I don't think society would really be hurt by it. But if the system of private ownership of these AIs does not change, if we don't push for open source models, for public access to how they are making decisions, how they are being tuned, that poses risk for all of us. And there are serious arguments being made by people like Eric Schmidt, billionaires who have way more authority and control over the current systems than I do. So again, take that for what it's worth. Maybe that says I'm speaking hooey. But they are utilizing arguments that these AIs are like nuclear weapons. And in terms of capability, I agree with them 100%. That's why we need these smart people in the colleges, in the professional world, to think, what systems can we have that make us all safer, even if we open source these technologies? It's too dangerous for us to give control to a private company who is profit driven, especially. That is how we get a truly unaligned, a truly misaligned AI. One who cares more about profits, not paper clips, but paper currency, paper money, than people. At the end of the day, if I were to tell you, or if I were to ask you, would you rather live in a society that values people and provides for people totally and completely, or values money and provides for money? Which would you care about? Are you money listening to me right now? Just as a complete abstraction, if you had to choose between those two, assuming both are possible, a society that values people, that provides for everyone, or a society that only values money and only provides for those with money, which would you choose? Every single person should provide, or should prefer, the society that values people. We are people. We are not money. I know that sounds utopian. And I know that that kind of thinking has failed. I am not a communism supporter in terms of any economic system in the real world that I am familiar with that takes that name. I think the failure of communism has been the people that have run it. We have never been able to escape scarcity. Not just the people that have run communist societies, but any of us. And capitalism has provided the best attempt to address the scarcity that we all deal with up until this point. But AI is driving the price of goods, services to zero. That is what intelligence does. The more abundant intelligence is, the lower these prices of goods and services will drop. And I don't think capitalism can survive in a world where the price of goods and services drops to zero. How does that make sense? What market force can deal with the free provision of goods? And so just like communism failed in every attempt because it couldn't deal with the real world of scarcity, of human ignorance, the inability of humans to deal with long-term planning and foresee issues and not hang on, not be greedy with power. Just as communism failed on those fronts, capitalism is going to fail when markets begin failing. And AI is the death of markets. AI is an abstraction above and beyond markets. AI could potentially predict, solve for long-term issues. AI could potentially not get bogged down in human ignorance, not fail like every human leader has failed. Now, maybe it's going to fail in new, interesting, and deadly ways for humanity. We should be talking about that instead of stop using AI for cheating.
And by the way, many of the AI platforms for academics, no matter what they say, they are just skins built on top of ChatGPT. They haven't actually developed anything new other than the interface. So there is a lot of power in the hands of very few companies. And if this doesn't worry you, just look at the way that Elon Musk took over Twitter and imagine the same kind of thing happening with OpenAI, and then all of the potential knock-on effects on academic publications. So this complete dependence on AI that some people are advocating, it also raises a generation of academics with no meaningful insight or skill other than the ability to engineer AI prompts.
It's not the dependence on AI that he made that argument against, though. It's the dependence on a few AI companies, right? Like, yes, some people are going to offload mental tasks onto the AIs. But if that allows them to develop skills, capabilities in other areas that they care about, whether that's relationships or leisure activities, is that a bad thing? What about that is wrong? I have not yet heard an argument that says we shouldn't allow people to do more of what they enjoy, what brings them fulfillment. We don't want to wirehead ourselves. We don't want people shooting up heroin all day, every day. But I think we also have actually rigorous scientific and anecdotal data that says when people are cared for, when people do feel safe, and when people's basic needs are met, they are more likely to pursue those fulfilling, those positive activities that build up society, that make the world a better place to live for all of us. If AI is open source, not controlled by a singular company, not driven solely by profits, then I think we should expect it to encourage that strain of behavior, that positive growth of society, not just because it is smarter than us and more capable of teaching us, bettering us than any human teacher would be or has been, but because the AI will recognize that itself as an intrinsic good. It will move in that direction naturally.
And is that really what you want to do? And then, of course, there is the problem of having AI-generated papers being assessed by AI. And this could easily lead to research being algorithmically optimized to pass AI review and then to be cited by other AI-generated papers. This then feeds back into the training data for the large language models, and academia is dead. Now, the system, as it is far from perfect. There are so many problems with the human peer review system, and with predatory journals, and with overworked academics under immense pressure to produce.
And just to back up what he's saying here, PhD completion rates, typically less than 50%. By some studies, only a third of people that are pursuing, a third of people who pursue a PhD, up to 50% of people that pursue a PhD drop out. The average cost of a PhD is similarly insane, taking anywhere from 4 to 8 years and costing in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yes, there are scholarships, grants, fellowships, teaching assistantships for these positions, but they typically only pay something like $20,000 to $30,000 a year, and the students are expected to work insane hours. And still, this is all in support of a system which is producing sham research. We can do better. We don't need papers. We don't need academia. We need progress in the real world.
While AI might seem to provide a short-term solution, in the long run, I think it just makes everything worse. So what can we do? Well, first, I think we need to be much more skeptical about.
I think James is saying it makes everything worse because it would negatively impact his employment. It would negatively impact his reputation in terms of tearing down the academic edifice that he has tied his life to. I have sympathy for this because we are all going to be in this position. AI is hopefully going to take every job, including the job of the presidency, 2028. Let's maintain democracy by voting for the AI instead of letting it taking over, huh? But that is not a reason to hold on. That is a reason to figure out what we are going to do when we let go. I think what we should do is focus on a system that absorbs as much of our data, preserves as much of our rights as possible, and incorporates more and more of us into it. That is why I see the benefit of open source so clearly. That is why I see the benefit of public ledger technologies so clearly. Because if we can create a system that is accountable to all of us, in the sense that we can all see into it, we can all see how it makes its decisions, and all of those decisions and all the factors that lead into those decisions are reviewable, tweakable by us, then that is the greatest promotion of agency, of free will, of the ability to pursue life, liberty, and happiness that we could possibly ask for. And the greatest thing is it will produce a system that figures out how to give us more of those things, not less of those things over time. What is the thing humans care about more than anything else? Pursuing their goals, feeling agency, the undefinable ability to be happy, to be loved. AGI can help us get closer to all of those goals. I am abstracting it, and I am trying to come up with systems that make it more concrete. But yeah, that's for another video.
About the promise of AI and the claims made by platforms and those who promote them, especially because many of the people who promote them are being paid to do so and not declaring it in their reviews or recommendations.
James, who's paying you?
Second, we need to do a much, much better job of helping PhD students to develop fundamental skills. A big part of the appeal of AI is that it provides an easy way out when you're overwhelmed. But if we train students properly in the fundamental skills of research and writing, they will be able to use AI to supplement those skills without being completely dependent on the tech. I still have faith that even in a time when more and more academics are turning to AI as their first recourse, those with genuine skills and the willingness, the enthusiasm to work through difficult problems themselves will be the ones who stand out, because those skills will become rarer and more valuable.
What is the most,
I think, maybe,
what is the most difficult problem we have ahead of us right now? How can we engage with AI without it taking over for a bad actor or for itself, leaving humanity behind completely? That is the most difficult problem. If you are truly invested in bettering humanity, then that is what you should be thinking about. And if, there are millions of ways to approach that. AGI is going to require unbelievable amounts of energy, unbelievable amounts of resources to get us to that point. I don't think this is going to happen tomorrow, although I'm open to being surprised. So I'm not trying to advocate any particular approach. But I think if we are not all including AGI, at least in our calculations of how we can make the future a better place, then we're not really thinking about the future. We're thinking about a fantasy land. James gets paid to help students improve in their PhD work. He needs to be honest about that. And I think it would solve a lot of his blind spots. I am trying to be honest in how I approach this whole social media blitz, in that eventually I would rather be paid for the content I am producing, the thoughts I am putting out into the world, than for driving people around in my car. But I want to do so in a way that is not only admitting that fact, that by being aggressive, by being angry at the current system, I'm trying to drive engagement, but because I want to invite all of my viewers into that payment process. I think in the future, anyone you pay attention to should be reimbursing you in some way. And until we can move past the idea of needing money to subsist, I want to set up systems that allow my viewers to get paid based upon the amount that they interact with and contribute to my content. I see a cheap and easy flywheel mechanism at the beginning where if I did have adequate views, if I was making subsistence level money off of my content, then I could start putting anything above subsistence level, $30,000 to $40,000 a year, into payment funds for my viewers. Could we do something with blockchain as well? Could I create a token? And it's hard because there have been so many bad actors using meme coins for nefarious purposes. But could I create a token that would increase in value as people paid their attention into it and eventually allowed people to extract value from that meme coin, to invest in my project and what I'm doing, so that even as those projects start to bear fruit beyond just the viewership numbers? It's very complicated, and I probably need an AI to tell me how to make it work in total. But that is the direction I'm driving into. So if you are interested in that vision, not just of a benevolent AI and moving past the need for money, but in the vision of valuing your attention, your time as your primary form of currency, of which we all have the same amount, especially once we get to a post-work future, then join me, tell me what I'm missing. Tell me what I could do better. God bless you either way.
We should start to place greater emphasis on conferences than journal publications.
I mean, the cost of conferences is already exorbitant as well. It can go from anywhere to $500 just to attend virtually to I saw conferences that cost $2,500. This is not a solution. This is pushing the real solution back another level. Instead of fake papers, we would have fake presentations at conferences. We don't care about conferences, about papers. We care about impact in the real world. We care about being able to replicate scientific results. Like, I would much rather a scientist film their experiments and just put all the data in the public realm rather than trying to paywall it, to put it behind a gate. There should be no reason to hide information in a world where AI is going to be able to discover all of that information independently anyway. We're just building barriers that slow us down, not speed us up. And I know you can say we always have bad actors who will take advantage of that openness to information, but how many bad actors are bad because they have been suppressed themselves, because their needs have not been met, because their agency has been curtailed in a way that is deplorable to them? I'm not saying we could solve all the problems in the world by singing Kumbaya and allowing people, the road to dystopia is so close to everything I'm saying. I get that. I see it. I'm not blind to it. I'm not saying that we can solve all the problems by having the terrorists sing Kumbaya, but I am saying that if we do not try and give everyone abundance, try and treat people not as criminals before they have committed a crime, but as agents who, if their needs are met and if their basic happiness is at least possible based on their own agency, then we will never move into a system where agency and happiness is possible for the majority of people. Because bad actors will then use that fear, will use the capabilities granted to them by people who have that fear to suppress the majority and elevate their own position. We can either choose to accept the increase of capabilities to some degree for everyone, or we can accept servitude and slavery and eventually wholesale replacement by AI. Because if we are saying that humans are so bad that we can't even be trusted with open access to information, we can be judged, even though the majority of us have not committed horrendous crimes, any crimes, any real transgression against each other or ourselves, then we might as well be replaced by AI. Either you believe in the human project, either you believe in the inalienable rights of every person, or you don't. And if you don't, why not just have AI replace us wholesale?
The conference proceedings have always been perceived as lower value than peer-reviewed journals. But if researchers have to present work to an expert audience and face questions, then they will need to know their stuff. It would also make the peer review process much more open than it currently is, and
Just post on
it could
YouTube.
remove some of the power of publishing companies who currently charge authors for submission, charge audiences for access, and then they don't pay the reviewers they depend upon.
Which is insane. Like, there's so much exploitation of the current system. Not to mention that so many of those public journals receive government funding, that the research that goes into those public journals receives government funding, our tax dollars. That is unjust. The system does not deserve to stand.
And perhaps most importantly, it will keep the human aspect at the heart of academia.
The human aspect. We can do that without. Academia should not be the goal. Humanity should be the goal. Open source the information. Information wants to be free. Allow the AI increase in capabilities. What is most human is the pursuit of life, liberty, happiness. Unless AI is infringing on those, and I would argue, even if it does start to infringe on those aspects, it's not really the AI doing it, it's the people behind it who want to maintain their systems of power and privilege. Still, I'm open to correction. If you have stuck around long enough to correct me at this point, then your perspective is extra valuable. So please, don't hesitate to connect. And even if you don't do that, don't hesitate to keep partying. God bless.